What is the biggest mistake people make when they're trying to choose a fine art paper for their work, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's that they probably don't give enough chance to the idea that the paper that they print on is so critical to their process. You know, people take a lot of time to carefully choose their equipment, set up their lighting. You know, everything is very carefully followed. And I think that a lot of people don't think to the very print, and that is the ultimate result of their efforts.
Right.
So I think that, you know, people really should take very seriously what a good print is and why it should be.
Right.
So I think that if people give that some thought, and then the various choices that there are, or the plethora of choices.
Ooh, that's a good word.
that really helps. That I think that helps give people direction on how to put closure on something that they put a lot of effort into creating.
So really what you're saying is that ultimately it's up to the photographer to choose. But instead of just rushing into it or just saying, I've just always done this, take some time and do some testing and make sure that the paper fits for your style, your lighting, your color, black and white, indoors, outdoors, studio, whatever that may be, and make sure that it fits. It's that important.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So when we were having lunch today and we were talking about the, you know, like the base white of the papers, some are warmer, some are cooler, and you said the word, the papers have a palette to them. And a palette is very deep in that the color is part of it, but also the texture, the reflectiveness, the eggshell finish, all the words you've been using today. If you were going to say, because that book that you have next to you has so many different options in it,
Mm-hmm.
for a person that's just starting out and they're like, I don't even know where to begin, and that's overwhelming to them, where should a person start? What's your advice?
Well, the first question that I always ask is, you know, we're talking about people's general taste to get the direction, and that is, do they like a glossy paper or do they like a matte paper? Okay. And so I talk about the surface reflectance of it, because that would be the first tier of making a choice as to which direction we're going to go with the paper. And then I would talk about texture, and you know, how heavy do you want to go on the texture? You know, we have several papers, and they're all, as I mentioned, they all have a different palette.
Yeah.
But part of that palette, like you said, is the texture part, and there are a lot of choices. So I think it's worth interpreting the image and figuring out the direction of the texture next, and then within that texture, then there are a whole lot of other choices, and those other choices would be based on, obviously, always the content of the image, but where do you want to end up with the white point of the paper, because that is important.
Yeah.
Specifically, like we talked about earlier, wedding dresses. If somebody is, you know, looking for a pure white wedding dress, well then those choices would be driven to a paper that has a really pure white point, because that's going to reflect in the final print. So going through those tiers of rough choices, and then really going deeper into what are the little nuances of these papers that will make the print sing. And that part is truly the interpretive part that the artist or photographer is going to ultimately sway that direction based on those choices.
So just segment it down and start cutting your, you know, do I want something with a gloss or not? Do I like a texture or not? And then it's just this constant cutting of the stack until you get down to your handful of options, essentially. So that really, you know, I think that'll be very helpful for people, because it can be overwhelming. It's just like, you know, sometimes looking at our website, we have so many things on there and so many options that when we see people in person at shows, they're like, I don't even know where to start. So just like, tell me where to start. I'm like, okay, well, I would do this, this, and this. Okay, great. Begin. Put a step forward and just try it first.
Right.
You know, it's not written in stone. You can always change.
Right.
There are no portrait emergencies.
Exactly. Well, and people ask it's such a general question that people ask is, what paper should I print on? Well, that's that's a burning question for everybody.
That's a big question.
But I think it's about the freedom of being able to actually navigate those choices. And I think that people start to think creatively when they see the choices. And that's the key, is to see it through to a final piece that is a creative endeavor. So those choices really help pinpoint that work that you ultimately want. And it's nice to have those choices.